Is it?
Justin R. Young.
Good day, Internet.
Hi, Internet.
Oh, there you are.
Hi.
I typed in Justin, and first one was Justin Timberlake for me.
Since we're all Oosins on this show, I will ask, did everyone have a good Oosin Independence Day on Friday?
What in the heck are you talking about, Tom?
I would have, except that the party I was going to had to be canceled last minute.
Oh,
So
why?
The person who was throwing it was a combination of their birthday and 4th of July, watch the fireworks, barbecue.
Yes.
Their spouse injured themselves and was unable
Oh,
to.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So I had to stay at home with the kids, jumping around and doing yard work like a good old homeowner should.
Justin, Oosins are people who live in the USA.
Who says that?
No one, just me.
Dishes out his thoughts.
I don't know what to do with that, Tom.
I don't expect anyone to say it either.
Well, there's
Independence July 4th is one of your favorite holidays. Well, you say that about Thanksgiving too, Justin. If you had to pick, which one would you pick?
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, because of the family.
But they're
aspect?
similar. Because they're low pressure, high enjoyment holidays.
Sure.
There's not a lot of you could keep it low key, you could do it big, wherever you want to do it. I would say Thanksgiving because I like football.
Yeah, there's
But
no
other
football on
than
July
that,
4th unless you're
No football
talking,
on July 4th. And
no NFL football on July 4th.
yeah, there's Grey Cup football, but get out of here. But
Not very patriotic on Independence.
not very patriotic. Here's my thing, and apparently I don't know whether this is real or not, but I guess for the 250th anniversary, they were saying next year they might do a UFC thing on July 4th at the White House.
Yeah.
And really, I didn't need to be UFC. I just think July 4th there should be a big boxing match on July 4th.
Yeah. Hot dog
Just give us
eating
something.
is not enough. Not
No,
that we should
daytime.
end-
That's
Yeah,
great
yeah,
daytime.
yeah.
That's
exactly.
like the Macy's
We need
Day
an evening
Parade
event. Yeah,
for
yeah,
gluttony.
Right. No,
Yeah.
that's true. You got your Macy's Day Parade, and then you got your football on Thanksgiving. You've got your hot dog eating contest, and then little UFC something. I don't know about UFC. I know UFC's super popular. Jason Howell's a big fan. All that. I don't. Maybe it's just because I don't follow it closely enough. But I would want a little pugilism, good old fashioned boxing.
I don't know. For
Yeah.
some reason, maybe. I guess. I don't know. For some reason, I'm always more fascinated with timed events. If they did an American Ninja Warrior.
They should have the All-Star baseball game on July 4th every year. That should be when it is. That would be the most American thing you could do.
Or do a gigantic series, right? Make sure that Yankees, Red Sox, or
Dodgers,
Giants,
Cardinals,
whatever.
Cubs, yeah.
Stack, own July 4th like basketball owns Christmas, or now football owns every day. But but stack make it a big thing. Have it an all day, so you can just leave it on. Boom.
Just have all three.
Baseball's just on.
Every year on July 4th, you've got
Yes.
Red Sox, Yankees, then Cardinals, Cubs, then Dodgers, Giants. You hit every time zone. Boom, boom, boom.
And then do make sure it's all celebrity-ified and you have a really good Take Me Out to the Ball Game singer for the Cubs and Joey Chestnut gets a
Hot dog eating
helicopter from Coney Island to center field in Yankee Stadium. That would be awesome.
Can we have a Rockies Diamondbacks for the Mountain Time Zone just to show how no one cares about the Mountain Time Zone? Sorry, Scott Johnson.
Yeah. Yes, we can. Yes,
So,
we can.
what would Joey? Would he be involved in any eating, or is he just there to?
Oh, he's still he's still doing.
No, yeah, no. The winner make that a thing.
I see it.
So he wins. Whoever wins the hot dog eating contest immediately gets on a helicopter, and then they fly to center field of Yankee Stadium, gets off, and then it's play ball. They get off and throw the first pitch.
Oh, yeah.
And then Come on, dude. I need to book July 4th. Just turn it over to me. I can figure this out. Big concert, maybe.
Oh, a big concert would be good.
That's the one thing.
right?
Look, there's a lot of things that can be said about the president of the United States of America, and I will leave everybody else to fill in the thing that they want to say the most right now. But there's no debate that if anybody is going to ham up the 250th anniversary of America, it's that dude. And all I would say is, regardless of your political opinions, just start lobbying him for whatever you want now, because he'll probably do it. Like drag shows, anime expos, whatever you want, he'll probably do it on the White House lawn if enough people trend it on Twitter.
If enough people make it trend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen and Morgan Wallen together again for the first
2,
time.
3, 4. He would love it. Are you kidding? Bruce Springsteen's on the Trump playlist for sure. Born in the USA is on the Trump playlist.
Certainly is. Yeah. I don't know how Bruce.
I've
about
heard it plenty of times.
No, I know it is.
Yeah.
37.
Village People reunion.
Uh,
I mean, that's a given. Like,
That's
that
a
might
given.
just happen today for no reason.
Just because.
Yeah.
Yes, we know, Fred. Yes, we know. I am looking forward to this lineup of interesting stories. We have a little tennis. We have a little government bureaucracy. We have a little TikTok rumor. We have
We
a
got
little
chips.
chip news. All that. I was going to say all that and some news of chips.
And more.
Have a good show, everybody.
Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live from Monday, July 7th, 2025 from Studio 7. I'm Tom Merritt.
Oh, from from Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
and I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
DTNS Live is made possible by you. Thanks to every single one of you, including Ali Sanjabi, AB Puppy, and Dale Mulcahy. Welcome to DTNS Live, the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it better and have a good time doing it. We were just talking about our 4th of July experiences and hopes for the future. Roger, what is the one thing you love about Independence Day in the United States?
I could be somewhat Salamic about it and say like, oh, I love when they do all the kind of historical aspects of American history, like where they talk about like how the nation was founded. They play all the music and the pageantry. But really, to be really self-interested about it, I love the sales. All the sales. I used to do when I was in college and literally bereft of money in my savings account. I would actually go down to car dealerships because they would have their like 4th of July inventory, and just to check out the cars, so I could open a car on the showroom floor and stick my butt in the seat and pretend that I was buying something new, even if it was for a few seconds.
That is a great way to celebrate America.
Yeah.
Car sales.
Car dealership coffee and aspirational vehicles.
Yeah. I assume you sit and think about Peyton Randolph and Adam Weishaupt, Justin, when you celebrate July 4th?
Oftentimes, my mind drifts to those people who I know very well.
Of course, the first president of the Continental Congress and the conspiratorial mind, according to conspiracy theorists, behind the Illuminati's role in the.
If you need to spell it out for the
for those who
dullards,
didn't know.
Tom,
For those who
like
didn't
sure.
know. Yeah.
In all seriousness, there is a great podcast by a guy by the name of Eli Lake. It's called Breaking History, and he did an episode on July 4th about the viral nature of the Declaration of Independence and how much it has been, the language within the Declaration of Independence has been used and reused not only through other revolutions and revolutionary movements, but also for social causes. That things from the Black Panthers to the Tea Party have all used the verbiage of the Declaration of Independence because there is something that speaks to not only the American soul, but the soul worldwide that yearns to be free.
Yeah. Go read a little up on Cuba and Vietnam. You'll find some truths held to be self-evident lurking around in those early documents.
The only thing I need to know about that is Red Dawn. Speaking of how awesome America is.
Well, folks, if you're listening live, you not only can participate in our chat room, maybe you'll get your chat up on the screen, or you'll get to feed into the conversation, but you'll also get to submit a title that could become the name of this very show. Wouldn't you want that for your legacy, for your children? So head to dtns.showbot.tv to submit titles and vote on them. What's more patriotic than voting for titles of this show?
Of the show, yeah. As the framers intended.
As the framers intended. We'll check back in on the votes at the end of the show and pick one. Let's kick off with a few stories that caught our eye. Samsung's expected to announce new foldables when it does its Galaxy Unpacked event. That's on Wednesday morning later this week. But WinFuture's Roland Quant loves Unpacked. He's like the kid before Christmas. Couldn't wait to show off info he says is from Samsung's promotional materials. And if accurate, the specs show that the Fold 7 is just a hair thicker than the Honor Magic V5, but it's super thin. 216 grams would make it the lightest book-style foldable yet. He also supports rumors of a larger cover screen for the Flip 7 and the existence of a less expensive Flip 7 FE. And then skating in under the wire, Epic just dropped its case against Samsung over third-party app stores. So might be a little something coming in that vein, too.
And if you're a Windows 11 holdout, well, there's some bad news. Windows 11 has finally taken over as the most used desktop OS 4 years after Windows 11 debuted. Windows Central noted that Stat Counter for July listed Windows 11 usage at 50% or 50.88% versus Windows 10 at 46.2%. So you can try to hold it off a little more. You have until this October. But just be warned that its popularity is slowly, if not boiling, maybe simmering.
Was there some doubt that it'd be like, no, if we can keep it below 50%, they'll have to continuing support Windows 10?
I mean, how long did they keep XP support around for?
Well, Windows 10 is going to still have security updates, right?
Oh, if you're a consumer, you can pay for years,
or you upload your cloud stats. You can get it,
but you get an extra year, and then you're on the hook again. But if you're a business, you can pay a little more. You can stretch it out like taffy, just a little bit longer.
Block CEO and Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey announced he has developed a peer-to-peer messaging service that uses Bluetooth mesh networks to let you send temporary encrypted messages without needing an account, a phone number, or a server. BitChat is available in beta on test flight. This is not the first messaging app of its kind, but with Dorsey behind it, it could get over the one hump that keeps these sorts of things from being successful, which is mass adoption.
I'm going to measure its success by how many times somebody tries to send me a message with this at DEF CON.
Yo, that's a good place for it too. Encrypted and no centralized server. That if it's going to succeed anywhere, it will succeed.
It will either win or lose at DEF CON. That is my prediction.
Absolutely. All right, those are the top 3 stories that caught our eye today. The Information has some sources saying that TikTok US is working on a special version of the app just for the United States that would launch September 5th, and that the current version of TikTok would stop working in the US in March. This is all in preparation for the possible sale of TikTok's US operations. Justin, what can you tell us about the political aspects of this?
Well, there's a couple things that go into it. Number one, it's important to recognize that the fact that TikTok is operating is against federal law currently.
I only quibble because someone else will if I don't.
Okay.
TikTok can operate. Google and Apple aren't supposed to distribute it.
You should not be able to interact with TikTok in the same way that you would now legally. Is that safe?
There you go.
There we go. Obviously, this has been the source of a lot of conversation. This was a law that was put in bipartisan. It was signed by then President Biden. And now TikTok has been used as part of a bargaining chip in the larger conversation of another trade framework between the United States and China. There is a phase one that essentially brought these two countries into alignment after they had both put tariffs on each other that essentially resulted in an embargo between two countries that frankly kind of rely on each other for goods and services. Now it appears, right? So this is coming from the tech side. It appears that there is movement on the idea of a sale, meaning that China would allow there to be some kind of divestment, whether or not the algorithm would come with it, who knows? But this has been extended 90 days twice prior. It's now extended 90 days until September 17th. And what it looks like now is that this will either be part of a larger deal, a phase 1 or 1.5, whatever we want to call it, with China, or China will just bless it to go. The biggest difference is that the algorithm that was so vaunted by TikTok is worth less today than it was, let's say, 6 years ago when we first started talking about something like this. AI has made that moat short to non-existent in the idea of creating waterfall video recommendation engines, which are now on almost every app there is.
Yeah, so theoretically, even if ByteDance says, great, we'll sell you TikTok's US operations, we'll even license you to interoperate with the rest of TikTok around the world, but you don't get the algorithm. Somebody can make a passable algorithm on the TikTok US end of things that might not be as starkly different as it would have been 6 years ago. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
I'd ask you, do you find the algorithms markedly different on YouTube Shorts or X compared to TikTok?
No, I think you're right. I think the gap between TikTok's magic sauce and what other companies can do is less. And it's certainly possible that because of that, ByteDance would be more willing to say, you know what, we'll license you that algorithm too, because we'd rather get money from a TikTok US independent agency than not.
I don't think that this was ever a ByteDance thing. I think if you just asked ByteDance, like, hey, especially 6 years ago, would you like to make a record-setting sale cementing you amongst the pantheon of Silicon Valley titans for which the creators of TikTok have always idolized? They've idolized Steve Jobs and so much of the Silicon Valley elite. Would you like for them to join these ranks by selling for an ungodly amount of money? I think that they would have done it. The question has always been whether or not China would allow the algorithm sale or would stand in the way of the other regulatory hurdles.
I mostly agree with you, although I think ByteDance has a little bit of Facebook in them. Everybody thought it was stupid for Facebook not to sell to Yahoo. Facebook believed in itself and didn't. I think ByteDance has a little bit of that, where they're like, no, why would we sell TikTok to anyone, right? They are being forced to sell it. And so I think, yeah, they're like, well, if we can make a load of money, then sure, maybe we will. But I don't know that they are in that camp of like, all else being equal, if someone wrote them a big enough check, they'd sell. But I do think that you're right, that the Chinese government is putting its thumb on the scale about what it's allowed to do, especially with the algorithm stuff, given the battle between the United States and China over perceived supremacy in AI related stuff.
It is hard to have a realistic idea of what ByteDance does or doesn't want when essentially they are caught between two governments that are demanding things of their product, right?
Yeah, at this
China
point,
obviously has a very hard reign on that tech. The United States is saying you must divest, you must sell this app. So, I mean, what they want to do.
You must sell. Oh, wait, you haven't? Okay. You must sell in 90 days. Oh, you haven't? Okay, you must sell in 90 more days.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, wait, you already actually carved out most of your U.S. operations into an independent company that gives Oracle all its money? still not. Yeah, okay, hold on. Let's get you to sell again. Like, that's the other side of this thing. Is the report from the information says that it would be sold to a group of mostly non-Chinese, or I'm sorry, not mostly. They would be sold to a group of non-Chinese investors. That doesn't
Yes.
mean U.S. investors. And 60% of ByteDance current ownership is not Chinese. They're in Dublin, they're in New York, they're in Tokyo, they're in Menlo Park, and they're in Singapore. So it could include those investors, like keeping their interest in the US, and then you bring in other investors to fill out the other 40%, including Oracle, who just gave the United States a big discount on cloud services, probably in exchange for a little help getting a bunch of money out of this.
Pole position to buy this app. I think that very much fits with the MO of the Trump administration, that every deal should come with a sweetener on top of it, because why not? We hold all the cards. How about you add a little cherry on top for daddy? Like that's kind of the way that this sort of operates. That being said, clearly, I don't believe that this would happen if it was just the same consortium of investors selling this to itself. I do think that there would be some kind of corporate structure change, if even just the fact that whatever this new entity is would be able to totally change the algorithm, whatever they want, because that has been the consistent issue with TikTok, though disputed, is that Project Texas, which runs the local algorithm, is taking orders from the headquarters on what to change within it, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that being something that all can happen domestically is likely the big key, because that's been the issue that has brought all this to the fore.
I think there's a difference between the ownership keeping its interest, the 60% non-Chinese ownership, and the algorithm issue, though. I think, in fact, one of the holdups of this has probably been those non-Chinese owners of ByteDance saying, hold on, what do we get out of this? And if what they get out of this is shares in the new one, they'll be fine, right?
Yes.
They cut out the co-founders of ByteDance. They cut out the employees of ByteDance, who own 20%, and they cut out the Chinese government, which owns 1% of ByteDance, because the Chinese government owns 1% of pretty much everything that exists in China, right? So yeah, they get cut out, but all the non-domestic investors get to keep a piece, and they don't care about the algorithm. They just want it to keep making money. So yeah, I think you're right that they could hand over the algorithm as a license, and then it gets developed on its own without having to communicate to the folks in Beijing about what's in it.
It also, from the Chinese side, shows that this is not the vanguard of tech that they are the most interested in these days. You know,
Not anymore.
Well,
No.
it's shifted, definitely. I mean, guess my big question though, for the end user, does anything appreciably change from their point of view? Do you get the new app and it feels like the old one, or you do all the stuff that you were doing before, or is it a completely new?
Yeah, it's a big question.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
'Cause
is
we'll
it
see.
interoperate with ByteDance's app? In which case, the end user probably isn't going to notice much of a difference at all. Or does everybody outside of the U.S. and inside the U.S., frankly, have to double post? Like, do they have to post on the TikTok US and on the non-TikTok US versions to reach a global audience?
And if it is sort of a little, wonky or inconvenient, for lack of a better term, does that then just kind of ding the TikTok brand, like bring it down just a little bit, where people start looking at what are my other options besides TikTok? Or do you think it's still strong enough that people just sort of suck it up and weather through? Because that's where all my followers are. That's where my presence is.
I mean, domestically, I think that it would be fine. I think it would keep chugging along. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of consternation about, like, oh, it sucks now. Ever since M2, it's bad, and the algorithm's different, and you're definitely going to get some static there. But there are TikTok people that just love TikTok. They are very dialed into that platform. They're very dialed into that community. And I think what you've seen with some of the other competitors, namely Instagram, YouTube, and X now, is that what those platforms leverage is what you like to do on those platforms, which might be different than TikTok. A lot of the stuff that I get when I do waterfall video on X is news, like clips that just came off television, because that is mostly what my feed is there. With YouTube, it's shorts from creators I follow. With Instagram, similarly, it's accounts that are either related to the things that I follow there. TikTok is obviously incredibly algorithm driven, but it's about the stuff that I follow there, and it's all kind of distinct. I don't think that there is a single competitor that you just go to. You might spend more time on one thing or another, but I think that they're pretty distinct at this point.
The one thing I think could be disruptive to this continuing to work as people think is if it doesn't interoperate with the rest of TikTok. Because the one thing that X has and the one thing that YouTube has is you post it one place in the world, everybody in the world gets it. Now, granted, there's a lot of domestic content in the U.S. that probably fills up the majority of people in the U.S. feed. But there's also stuff from outside that you probably don't realize is from outside, right? There's a lot of, international music, international television shows, this and that. It's not that they wouldn't be able to post it to TikTok US. They'd just have to, it would take extra work. And so not all of it's going to make it there. I think it would probably be the best user experience if they interoperate. And I feel like that's really what they want is on paper, they want this to be US owned. And in the data center, they want the data to be in the U.S. Well, guess what? The data center is the data's already in the U.S., so that part's done. Just change who owns it on paper and let it continue to operate. Kick a little back to ByteDance for the interoperation, and you're done.
Yeah, they want to be able to change the algorithm locally. That's what they want. They want to be able to see the algorithm source code, and they want to change it locally. They want to make sure that there is no one putting their thumb on the scale of what gets recommended, which I doubt there's a whole lot of that being done, but we don't know, right? Yeah.
That's the whole point. Yeah.
Which for me is a lot of people having very suggestive conversations about their sub being done Mike's way.
That would be Jersey Mike. Is that what you're referring to?
Tom, I got into a rabbit hole on TikTok. These kids, they're going into these sub shops and they are just saying the filthiest things about it being done Mike's way. That's all I'm saying.
That's all. That's
just
all
look
you're
it
trying
up.
to say.
It's ridiculous.
And you don't know, is this organic? Or
is this Xi Jinping trying to get me off my game?
Saying, I want our country to be a sub above.
I know. He wants it Mao's way.
All right. Shifting gears a little bit. I have a tale of government bureaucracy that made its paperwork less, its system faster, and its citizens almost universally happy with it. And it happened now in the current times. Not back in the 1800s. You're like, oh, is this some story from 1870, Tom? Like you usually tell Grandpa? No, this is something happened in the past couple of years. Wall Street Journal.
Switzerland.
No, it happened in the United States.
The good old US of A.
Yeah. The Wall Street Journal has an article about how successful the new U.S. online passport renewal system is. Yeah, so it's not only government, it's not only the U.S., it's on the internet. The system lets applicants determine their eligibility online, make sure yep, okay, you're a citizen, you have a passport, we can help you with this. Then you fill out your updated information, you upload your photo, you don't have to staple it to some form, and you pay from your computer. You don't have to mail anything. This has been running for less than a year now for everyone, but it already handles nearly half of all renewals. It still says it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get the physical passport in the mail, but most people are saying it takes less than 4 weeks. The development was led by Luis Coronado, the Bureau of Consular Affairs Chief Information Officer, and Matt Pierce, the Acting Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary. The coolest thing about this is that it failed. They tried a pilot version of this that actually reduced the efficiency in 2022. They went down from 200 application approvals a day to 10 a day if you were using their new system. And so, of course, they ended that system, but didn't give up, didn't go like, well, see, I told you the old way is best. They went back to the drawing board, figured out what they did wrong, which was basically they changed too many things at once. And then in 2024, launched a second attempt. They tightly controlled it as a beta, scaled it up slowly, expanded access in phases over 3 months, starting last June, fixed bugs along the way as they found them. So by the time it rolled out to most people, those bugs were squashed. And now 94% of respondents review it positively. Nothing ever, forget government, gets reviewed with 94% positivity. 86% said that renewing their passport online increased their trust in the government because it worked so well. Again, doing anything with the government rarely increases your trust.
I'm impressed because, the last time I had to update my passport was in 2020, and that was right on the eve, or not the eve, the beginning of a pandemic. And it took me a little over 3 weeks. And I did the whole, I had to
Not
get
bad.
my wife.
3 weeks
not
isn't
bad.
bad.
It was actually faster than I thought. I assumed it'd be 4 to 5 weeks. But it is. You gotta send in your old passport. You send in photos, the application, the money, of course, and then you put in the padded envelope and hope it doesn't lose its way to the mythical passport office, wherever that is.
Turns out, not a myth, and now much more efficient. Justin, this is American exceptionalism. I know you're a fan.
Indeed, it is, and I'm very excited about it. I think that the real fascinating element of it is the fact that it's as secure as it is. I mean, that's part of the reason why everybody put up with the fact that it took forever to get a passport, is that there is this element of it is the most secure document that you have as an American. It's in a book. There's a chip in it, probably.
Yeah.
There's pages, and everybody it is well respected around the world. It gets you into so many places. You can use it to get into age restricted areas like bars or to an R-rated movie. So it's looked at in this vaunted perspective, and the fact that it could all be done via a web form is pretty amazing. Yeah. That's really, really unique, and that the government feels comfortable leaving that out there because it is not spammable shows a lot of faith, which I'm excited that they feel that it's crossed that threshold.
I mean, and not to kind of diminish the point, but you can open a bank account, you can open you can save, you can do all sorts of things because it is a recognized federal ID. I've used it a number of times for every time we need some sort of form, official government ID. I pull it out and they take it and they write down whatever notes they need to, but. It's rare. I remember the only other time I was very impressed at how speedily government service worked was in 2021, and I was trying to figure out some issues with transferring the title of ownership from my father-in-law to my wife, and we went to the DMV office 2 times, and the DMV office is only half a mile away from my house. I got the worst runaround, all sorts of contradictory information of things to do. And I told my wife at one point, it's you know what? Screw it. Just call the DMV on the phone. We've tried going in person, and we've had very, very mixed results. Did over the phone, 25 minutes, everything was solved. They say, take this information, take this case number. You go down there, you tell them this, you sign that, done. Literally, what took over 2 weeks of visiting a DMV office was completed in less than 25 minutes. And that's wow, someone actually really put some thought into this process that allowed me to complete something that I thought was uncompletable.
That is actually one of the reasons I'd encourage people to read this Wall Street Journal article if they can, because a lot of it is going into the history of the folks who worked on this, particularly that Undersecretary Pierce, and how he was graduating college in 2007 and had always wanted to work for the passport department. Never underestimate the power of somebody to have a dream to do the thing that maybe the rest of us aren't that interested in, and really was a driving force behind updating this, because they hadn't updated the process since the 1970s. Now, Laurent is asking a pertinent question. This is just renewal, not first issuance. So if you need to do first issuance, yes, there's a lot more of the security check that goes into making sure that you have all the proper documentation to get the passport. But I didn't see it in the Wall Street Journal article, but I'm guessing the fact that the U.S. government and login.gov particularly are so up to date with good multi-factor security, good identity management, helps the passport office to be able to say, okay, we have a pretty easy and secure way to make sure you are who you say you are. So if you're renewing, that's kind of all we need to do is go, you're you. You were issued a passport before. Give us a couple pieces of information to update. Great. We can get you a new one.
Let me ask you this. The biggest pain in the butt when I renewed my passport a few years ago, prior to this being in effect, or at least available to me, was the picture. But you still got to go and you got to get a physical picture. You got to print a thing. I had to mail it. So you can do this now online. Does it make the taking of the picture easier? Are you taking like a webcam picture and then it's blanking out the back? Because I got my thing sent back because my pictures were too dark. I needed a shock white background for my passport, and I was working with a passport expediting company.
I am looking that up because the Wall Street Journal didn't mention that. A digital photo that meets the specific requirements. So you need to have a photo taken by someone else. It has to be clear and correctly formatted as a JPEG. The online system provides guidance on the photo requirements. But it sounds like somebody could take it with a decent phone camera, and as long as you have the right background.
That's what I did. I ended up just having, and I actually had to print them out on my photo printer, but I took it with my phone. The walls of my house
a
are
selfie's
white.
not going to work. But if you have a white wall in your house and somebody else takes a picture, it has to be the right dimensions and all that. That's still probably the most difficult part of this, but it's not as hard as it used to be.
Especially now, it's so easy to blank out your background in a way that you really weren't able to before.
Yeah. Well, folks, do you like us talking about this sort of stuff? Or you're like, you know what? These are great. I got another idea for a topic for y'all. Submit it on our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show. Y'all watch Wimbledon in July?
No.
It's not a big tradition for
I'm not a tennis guy.
Not a tennis guy, Roger. Yeah.
I only like tennis as video games. Like Virtua Tennis on the Dreamcast was my jam.
Okay.
But like
Hey, live audience, do y'all like tennis? Anyway, but you know what Wimbledon is, obviously,
Of course,
right?
of course.
Yes.
And did you hear the news that Wimbledon, the All English Lawn Tennis Club, had replaced its line judges with an automatic system for this year's Wimbledon tournament?
I had not. I do know that tennis has technologically led the way in this realm and that they have very sophisticated tracking technology that they were going to, I guess, in questions of disputes, if players wanted to dispute a line judge's ruling. But now in this case, you're saying, wait a minute, this is just now the auto.
Yeah. There's the umpire is still there. The umpire is the person that sits up in the chair and goes, love 15, and all of that. Fault. But the line judges were the people who would indicate whether it was in or out when the ball was close. And the umpire was like, no, we need to know. It would say so. They have an automatic system for that. By the way, it's from Hawkeye Innovations, which does all of these. Automatic balls and strikes system in Major League Baseball they're going to try to put in next year. Hawkeye Innovations.
Really?
Goal line judge in soccer. Did it go over? Hawkeye Innovations.
VAR?
Hockey. It's Hawkeye Innovations. They do it. They are a Sony company. And they do all of these. It's a Sony sports company that does all this. Anyway, Hawkeye had the system so good that Wimbledon was like, we don't even need the line judges. Umpire can just handle this, except during a fourth round match between Britain's Sonia Kartal and Russia's Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova on center court, mind you. Kartal sent a backhand long that was not detected by the line call system. The line call system just said stop twice. Didn't say in or out. So the umpire, Nico Hellworth, opted to replay the point, which Cardle then won.
Uh-oh.
Now, obviously, Pavlyuchenkova was not pleased with that because it was
No.
clearly out and they should have won and would have preferred the umpire to just overrule the system and say, I know it said stop, but stop is not in or out. Can you just call it out? Turns out, according to the All English Lawn Tennis Club, an operator error meant the ball tracking technology had been turned off for that game. And no one realized it until that particular call. They said, following our review, we have now removed the ability for Hawkeye operators to manually deactivate the ball tracking. While the source of the issue was human error, this error cannot now be repeated due to the system changes we have made. And Club Chief Executive Sally Bolton followed that up to say, the umpire followed the protocols. If the line system is basically like not telling you one thing or another, the protocol was to replay the point. He did what he needed to do on the court and acted entirely correctly. But also, he's having a rest day today. He's fine, said Sally Bolton. So he's not umpiring today. Maybe he already had the day off. I don't know.
Roger, this smells. What you buy this? You buy this cover story? Oops.
It seems a little too convenient.
Sus.
Perhaps I am too much of a cynic to assume that it's just a mere coincidence, and that perhaps it was just. Listen, I mean, this is the thing with any sort of technology that you implement. When you have a human operator and you do offer them a modicum of control, invariably someone's going to either toggle the switch off, accidentally kick the cord out of the socket right at the crucial moment, which millions and millions of viewers are eagerly waiting with bated breath to see what the official call is. And if you don't have, I'm sure instant replay had many of these moments, either in the NFL, I'm sure an MLB or a hockey or whatever, where you have let's go
Cricket.
check the tapes. They're mysteriously erased because no one bothered to put in a cassette at the time. This is what sports history is made up of, right? A lot of innuendo, a lot of hearsay, and a lot of
Yeah. I kind of can't believe that they didn't have this topped off by a human gatekeeper to begin with. Like, what is it really for an event like Wimbledon? If you believe in this tech, to just say, all right, look, the tech does 99.999% of the work, but we have a human proctor in case it accidentally says the ball's a watermelon for whatever reason, right? Like all of these technologies are fathomable, but we would like at least somebody to mostly take the word of the machine, but if it's totally ridiculous, be able to challenge it or slow it down before it embarrasses everybody.
The machine wasn't wrong. The machine was off.
Yeah. Well, but even then, the argument to have a human proctor is even more strong because you know who would have noticed that the machine was off? A human proctor.
Maybe. Apparently, the human who turned it off didn't notice they turned it off.
yeah.
Yeah, but we don't know anything about this. And I don't know. I'm
Sports
suspicious.
history. I'm telling you, this is what great sports history moments are
What
made up
other
of.
sport history moment echoes this, Roger?
Listen. I picked something, and I'm sure you can find something about Jimmy
You know,
Hoffa. I'm sure
sport
Jimmy
moment,
Hoffa.
the big one.
Jimmy Hoffa. What sport did Jimmy Hoffa play?
He's played under the field goal. That's
Yes,
what he did.
because it was a mob burial. That has nothing to do with anybody who's playing football at the Meadowlands.
The Immaculate Reception? I don't know. Yes.
The Immaculate Reception, at least there you do not see via the television cameras whether or not the ball hit the ground.
Right.
So there is an element of that there, but that was not determinative of the referees on the field said it was a legal catch, and we all know it was. Go Franco, R.I.P. But yeah, I can't think of another thing where there was a tech. Soccer's riddled with them. Like VAR is very, very, very controversial.
Cricket.
and also low key ruins the flow and excitement of a game.
I honestly feel like that what makes this story interesting for me, both as a sports fan and as a tech fan, is that the tech was working perfectly. This is an example of tech doing it right. It's reliable. It sped up the game because it would give an immediate in or out. It was always right, and people were arguing with it less than they were arguing with humans, and it was humans that effed it up. Not the tech not working. Granted, maybe there will be an example soon where the tech doesn't work, but you got to have the machine on for the machine to work. That's like saying, I don't know, man, that line judge was in the bathroom. What are we going to do? Right?
Can I indulge conspiracy?
Please do. Yeah.
Let's say you're Hawkeye, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And you have your credibility that is necessary in all of these amazing sports. Major League Baseball, soccer, you got a World Cup coming up. You have a World Cup club thing that's happening right now. The questioning of your tech cannot happen. You cannot,
especially at this big, grand slam
in a big
event.
way, saying that it's going to screw stuff up. That opens the door to competitors. That opens the door to other people to try to dethrone you. Isn't it easier to say, "Oh no, sorry, it wasn't on"?
I guess we'll never know.
It's easier to say it wasn't on than to say, "Sorry, there was a glitch in the system. There was a bird flying over a thing and it didn't read the."
Although
the ball.
I will say they have done so many exhaustive tests for that, and the automatic line judge has been in trial with human backup for years now at Wimbledon. That it's pretty believable that it didn't glitch, but
it's believable it got turned off. Who's turning it off?
To me, like, incompetence is always a better.
Do we know what is like? Oh no, this was the normal turn it off in the middle of the tournament thing. We power cycle 6 times a day.
Well, not turn off the device, but like I imagine it was a checkbox that was like, do we need line judges on? Yes.
Now this is your fan fiction. You're just writing.
Going into my fan fiction, but that fits the facts because the machine was saying stop, which is like basically a warning, like an error code, versus saying in or out, or I don't know what to do.
It was saying stop relying on me.
Wow.
Well, maybe we need to stop relying on TSMC because they are too big. Too big business. Are they so big, Roger, that they are keeping even the likes of Samsung from being able to produce chips?
I mean, well, let's look at this story. Nikkei Asia reported that Samsung is temporarily halting the completion of a semiconductor plant in Taylor, Texas, due to the lack of customers. In other words, they don't have any customers lined up to take out the future output of this plant, and so they're just like, well, it might save us more money just to go slow on this stuff. Now, understand that the company said it would invest more than $37 billion in Texas after being awarded a CHIPS grant by the previous Biden administration. Now, according to a supply chain executive familiar with the matter, said, quote, local demand for the chips isn't particularly strong, and the process nodes that Samsung planned several years ago no longer meet with current customer needs. However, overhauling the plant would be major and very expensive, costly undertaking. So the company is adopting a wait-and-see approach for now. And this, to me, underscores the rather inflexible nature of semiconductor production. You really need to plan these out, not just years in advance. You need to plan these out decades in advance. And TSMC is where it's at because they plan decades out in advance. AMD recently switched over from Samsung's process to TSMC's process out in Arizona for its EPYC server chips. And, of course, Samsung's not alone. Intel, with their new leadership, is reportedly looking at axing the 18A semiconductor process, the foundry process that they were flogging not more than a year ago, because they want to concentrate on the upcoming 14A process. And this market moves so quickly that you really can't So it's weird when you look at it. You're either at the very high end or you're at the commodity end. If you're at the commodity end, like China, you can produce a number of chips that go into things like a set-top box, or they go into your automobile, things that don't need the cutting-edge process. But if you can't really be in the middle because it's financially infeasible, so you need to aim for the top end. But if you're aiming for the top end, it's a very, very competitive market, and TSMC at this stage is the biggest fish.
Yeah, I mean, Intel's its own ball of wax in trying to decide, like, we got 1 foot in, we got 1 foot out on being a foundry or not being a foundry. Essentially, like, are we going to make chips for other people or just for ourselves? Samsung also not the cleanest example these days. Like, there is some internal disorganization at that company, especially in the chip end, where they are seeing their market share erode not just to TSMC, but to SK Hynix as well. Forget this U.S. plant. I mean, it's tempting to look at this and say, well, it was a plant made with government money that shouldn't have been made because there wasn't a demand, which there's some truth to that. But I think there are other plants, particularly ones from TSMC, being built in Arizona that are making chips for people. So do you think this is as much of a Samsung issue as it is anything else?
I think it's just a changing nature of the market. You really have to be laser focused on it. It can't just be we're electronics conglomerate. This is just one part of our business. You really have to, I mean, you don't see TSMC finance and loans, right? Like Samsung does insurance. Samsung, they do a lot of other things.
Sure. Sony's a great example of this with image sensors, and they're doing great. They're not having the same problem Samsung is.
Yeah, and well, it's also that they've been chasing more recent, within the past, I say, decade, 15 years, when they saw some of their market get eaten away, and they said we need to reorganize and we need to refocus on what we want our core competencies to be. And I think this just, but again, to speak to the larger issue, it requires decades of planning. You cannot just say on 1 year, we'll have a 5-year plan, we're going to have a plant. Well, you have a plant built, but you still need to install all the manufacturing equipment, and then you need to validate that to make sure it all works.
Okay, but you're almost, to someone who doesn't know, you're making it sound like Samsung didn't do any of that. They did all of that. They just don't have people to buy the chips that the stuff they installed would make.
When they planned this out, that market moved, right? It's like if I was AMC back in the 70s, I planned out, the Hornet, right, as an automobile, but when it finally ships after years of development,
But is it that the chips they would make in this plant are so behind that no one would buy them, or is it that Samsung itself has fallen behind, and if they were SK Hynix running this, they'd be able to sell them? Or is it because they're in the U.S. and these are going to cost a lot to ship from Texas at the cost they're made in Texas elsewhere in the world?
Or is it because they spun up a factory with a bunch of money that they had to burn from the government, and it just spun up too fast? They picked wrong.
I column A, a little from column A, a little from column B, a little from column C. I mean, it is not the one Samsung really screwed up because the guy who was in charge of this didn't look closely enough at the numbers, or they just burnt money because it was a grant money and it wasn't a big deal to them, or Samsung just is falling behind. It's when you look at the stuff, Intel's the same way. It's a cut. It's 1,000 cuts, right? It's not the one thing that kneecapped everything. It is just poor decisions, but also compounded by a changing market, compounded by the fact that certain supply chains got disrupted, and that's brought certain costs up, right? Whether you're talking about storms in North Carolina that flooded not a mine, but a quarry where they mine the silicate to make the very high-end fab node process silicon wafers, to things like trade disagreements that bring up the costs of certain materials, as well as shipping. So I mean, there's all these things, and I would say it's a perfect storm of things. And I'm curious to see how all this plays out within the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, Samsung's in trouble. I'm not saying Samsung's going to die or go away, but this is indicative of a weakness in their organization, and I can't wait to see the K-drama that is based on how SK Hynix is eating
I
So
knew
Samsung.
you were going
that's your
somewhere.
angle, Tom. I knew it.
Of course, it's a K-drama.
It is. There's a show called Reborn Rich that used the Hyundai
Jesus.
Kia story in its element. I can't wait to see which one better is this one.
Wow. Reborn rich. Man,
Yeah.
that's a
It's a
fantasy.
time
I
travel
like
story.
that.
Guy gets reborn as a rich person.
How do I make that happen?
I'll tell you another time. But yeah,
I do
there's some
wonder,
corporate moves and intrigue going on, especially when Samsung has their chairman and founder in jail half the time in its recent history. So
Yeah, I mean, I think parent company stuff is certainly not to be ignored here. And there are philosophical differences in terms of for the United States' desire to put more chip fabrication in America. It's not as simple as it may seem. Obviously, it is a core element, and we have put a lot of time, money, and effort, both from cutting checks directly from the federal government, like we did with the CHIPS Act, and then just trying to coax businesses overseas in various different ways, the way that the current administration has. But really what you have to do is build enough of a domestic manufacturing where everything gets made here, because creating the chips is in America, if you still got to ship them somewhere else to get manufactured, doesn't really do you much.
yeah. Well, and yes and no. I mean, shipping them somewhere else to get packaged is actually pretty normal. But not having anywhere that will take them, I think is the bigger issue. And I think that's the key. Is it's not that you couldn't build a factory in the US and make a go of it. It's that it's more difficult. And Samsung has not been up to the task.
People are building factories.
Absolutely.
And understand, like, when I say difficult, I mean financially. Like, how do you make a business proposition where you are turning some, maybe not a profit, but you have enough money that keeps that factory, that fab plant, that production facility self-sustaining, that you're not constantly needing to invest more and more money into it and you're always running in the red.
Yeah. Anyway, go watch Reborn Rich. It's on Netflix. Let's check out the mailbag. Seth had this to say about our discussion on Thursday about the effect suspensions have on people's behavior on Roblox. The top line was, the longer the suspension, the better the effect on keeping people from violating the rules in the future. Seth wrote, my 12-and-a-half-year-old son is obsessed with Roblox. He's on it probably too much. When he does something to get banned for a certain period of time, I, as the parent, get a notice, and I can see what he did to be banned. I have that set up in parental controls. The little bugger also set up another alt account so it doesn't slow him down, LOL, but I get those reports too. Regardless, I agree that it's good that there are rules on Roblox at all, but also I don't think these punishments from the game companies really stick long term. He still gets in trouble from time to time, nothing serious, just stupid kid stuff. Most are learning experiences if I can catch the issue through the report and talk to him.
Yeah, kids are very adaptable that way. When they want to be somewhere where all their friends are, they're going to find a way, right? They either sneak out of their house or they make a second account to log into Roblox.
They make Roblox accounts, yes.
Of course they do. And that was kind of my take on that story on Thursday was you're increasing the effectiveness, but it was still 14%. Like the effectiveness still isn't very high. And and I think what Seth is saying is like, you know what? Parental involvement with your child probably does more than the punishments.
It does, and I will say it's all cumulative, right? It's not like you can't just be the best parent in the world because you'd run ragged trying to look over their shoulder. At the same time, you can't just sort of offload that responsibility onto a social media platform or whatever. It takes a certain level of integration and partnership.
Have you started Bella on Roblox yet, Justin?
No. She's skipped right to AutoCAD.
How old is she now?
10 and a half.
10 and a half months. Yes. Yeah. Remember, folks, you can send in your comments to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. And of course, if you're a patron, comment on the episodes directly on Patreon. We get those as emails as well. Justin Robert Young, a pleasure as always, my friend. So good to see you today. What you got going on PX3 to tell people about?
If you'd like to know more about the political world that enmeshes us all, you can listen to PX3 this week. We have two great guests. Julie Grace Burfkey is going to talk to us about some of the drama that surrounded the One Big Beautiful Bill passage last week, and then whether or not there is a massive gulf in fundraising for the midterms between the two parties. The money man, Dave Lebenthal, joins the show on Friday.
My favorite thing about the bonus episode, which you only get if you're a patron of PX3, was that one of your weekend clips was of you.
Yes, I was on British television where a presenter, who's a knight, by the way, Eamon is his first name. I cannot remember his
Sir
last name.
would be his
Apologies to Sir Eamon. But he was leading into my segment about Elon Musk's new political party, which we spared you on this show. You're welcome. He was talking about public evacuations, I will say, for our audience, and then just led right into me, which I thought was very funny.
And now joining us, Justin Robbie.
And now joining us.
Yeah. Well, folks, during the show, as I mentioned, you had a chance at immortality by being the person who submitted the title we used over at dtns.showbot.tv. Saray TW at the top of the table right now with the TikTok Regulations Dance Challenge. Let's start it. We also, from Saray, tell us a news story, Grandpa Tom. And I like Engine videos. The joys of passport renewal. Really?
Yeah. I really like Tennis Tech Crosses the Line.
Yeah. That's
good.
clever, Badfink.
It's a good alliteration.
A record number of people actually liked what the government did from GPay.
Yeah.
Was the
for the
watermelon
history
unseated? I think this relates to you saying that the automatic line judge could think it was a watermelon, right? TikTok troubles continue. Hawkeye control of too many systems. Samsung, the K-drama. I don't know. There's some really good stuff in here. Roger, what should we go with?
Because Justin is one of our favorite contributors on the show, we had to go with what he liked, and that was Tennis Tech Crosses the Line from Pat Fink.
There we go.
Quiet, please.
You're welcome, Badfink. Me and you together.
Thank you, Batfink 2001. Also, thanks to everybody who watches us on LinkedIn, watches us on YouTube, watches us on Twitch. And today we have some special folks watching on Twitch to thank, such as Fakey Nose Grub 00 with Happy Free Money Monday, using their Prime subscription to kick a little bit of juice our way for the 55th month. Prince of Brow resubscribed with Prime for the 53rd month, said have a good day, everybody. Zoe Brings Bacon cheered us with bits. Razin resubscribed for the 43rd month. Unpretentious Donut subscribed with Prime as well. Welcome, Unpretentious Donut, my favorite kind of donut. Big thanks to them and everybody who supports us at patreon.com/DTNS as well. If you're someone who's like, look, love to support you, Tom. I get the whole value for value thing, but unless you're giving me something, I can't just give you something. It's against how I live. Well, guess what? We have a store at dailytechnewsshow.com/store. What can I interest you in? What do you guys like? You want a mug?
I like the shirts. I need a mug. I really do need a mug.
We have multiple colors of shirts. We've got the mug with the DTNS Live logo. We have a sarsaparilla glass. One of you was like, I bet they don't have a sarsaparilla glass. We have a sarsaparilla glass.
But what I really need, Tom, is a self-adhesive image of myself in an animated fashion.
Suitable for wearing the Roger Chang sticker.
Yeah.
That and more available at dailytechnewsshow.com/store. You can also watch us live Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC. Find out more about that at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Back tomorrow with Jenn Cutter as our guest. Talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.